Calling attention to faith and works. Narration by Anaiah, Bhat, Israel. Faith, a common term used in many religious institutions. Although faith is a noun, there is still action that must take place in order to demonstrate the true meaning of faith.
For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. James chapter 2, verse 26.
Teaching the children of Israel to be true believers was one of Christ's most difficult tasks. To be a true believer, one must be faith-filled, which can only be attained through works. For it is written,
knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Yeshua the Mashiach. Even we have believed in Yeshua the Mashiach, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. Galatians chapter 2, verse 16.
The term works, used in Galatians 2:16, is referring to animal sacrifices, which was done away with for a time due to Yeshua's perfect sacrifice. However, the precept of grace received through true faith cannot be achieved without actually having done spiritual work as a servant of Yah. Yeshua magnified the law by defining the true spirit of the law through his visitation in the flesh, as a chosen vessel of Yahweh, serving as a symbol of faith being used to do great works in Yah's name. His walk showed us how to follow the spirit that dwelt within him versus being led of the fleshy desires in us.
For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Elohim sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Romans chapter 8, verses 3 through 5.
Unlike man, Yahweh requires more than lip service. The prophet Isaiah confirms our Father's desire for true faith from his servants in the scripture quoted by the apostle Matthew.
This people draweth near unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Matthew chapter 15, verse 8.
Many of our hearts are still far from Yah because we do not possess true faith. So that leads us to the question, what is faith? Definition of faith: allegiance to duty or a person, loyalty, fidelity to one's promises, sincerity of intentions, belief and trust in and loyalty to God, belief in the traditional doctrines of a religion, firm belief in something for which there is no proof, complete trust. Something that is believed, especially with strong conviction, especially a system of religious beliefs, the Protestant faith.
Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of Elohim, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Elohim must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 through 3 and verse 6.
To weed out non-believers from the believers, one can easily examine the so-called believers' works, which demonstrates whether or not a person truly has faith in the Most High Yahweh Elohim of the Holy Bible.
By faith, Abel offered unto Elohim a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, Elohim testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased Elohim. Hebrews chapter 11, verses 4 through 5.
Notice that in the biblical definition of faith, it provides examples of faith by stating the actions of those who demonstrated true faith. Even the creator of all, Yahweh himself, demonstrated faith. Yahweh led by example through his great faith in his Son and chosen people of Israel. This was great faith, for since the beginning of time, we have shown him constant disobedience, and a lack of faith in him. He considered us a sottish people, and to be foolish in the ways of our works.
For my people is foolish. They have not known me. They are sottish children, and they have none understanding. They are wise to do evil, but to do good they have no knowledge. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 22.
Yahweh knew there would be times when his servants would forsake him, as Peter did the Anaiah by denying him 3 times. However, Yahweh's loyalty, which means faith according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, as in the beginning, will always remain.
If they shall confess their iniquity, and the iniquity of their fathers, with their trespass, which they trespassed against me, and that also that they have walked contrary unto me, and that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept of the punishment of their iniquity, then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Esau, and also my covenant with Abraham will I remember, and I will remember the land. Leviticus chapter 26, verses 40 through 42.
Despite our shortcomings as a nation, Yahweh has always kept his covenant with Israel and had faith that there would always be a remnant of Israel that would turn away from their evil works and do good works of Yah, just as Simeon became Cephas, Peter the rock of the church.
Know therefore that Yahweh your Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful Elohim, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9.
Through faith in Israel, Yahweh chose man to judge the world and even judge angels, which is works of righteous judgment. He trusted Israel to follow his laws, statutes, and judgments of how to do works so that our faith could allow us to correctly judge the world as he intended from the beginning.
Do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know you not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertaineth to this life? 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 2 through 3.
Given the works that had to be done, Yahweh had to have tremendous faith when he gave up his only begotten son. Yahweh transcended his son, the spirit of Israel, from a god into a man. Yeshua was a specially crafted vessel, made to carry the Spirit upon his baptism. This was another huge test of faith by believing that his Son would do what was commanded of him. Yeshua walked in the commandments despite constant persecution for his works and physically died a painful death. It is this example of faith by both the Father and the Son that true believers aim to follow.
Wherefore also we pray always for you, that our Elohim would count you worthy of this calling, and fulfill all the good pleasure of his goodness and the work of faith with power, that the name of our Adonai Yeshua the Mashiach may be glorified in you and you in him, according to the grace of our Elohim and the Adonai Yeshua the Mashiach. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verses 11 through 12.
Through our own lack of faith and understanding, we have murmured against other servants of Yah, in whom the angel has spoken through to give us instruction on what true faith and works really are. We all have heard of situations of faith being tested, but at times we have chosen to have respect of persons instead of having faith in Yah, just like some of our forefathers did in the wilderness who murmured against Moshe.
And Moshe said, This shall be, when Yahweh shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that Yahweh heareth your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against Yahweh. Exodus chapter 16, verse 8.
Remaining still or silent in dramatic situations is an action in itself. True faith is also exhibited in the action of praying and waiting on Yahweh to guide us, which often results in us receiving what we need versus what we think we want. Many people today complain of ailments in their bodies and depend on modern-day medicine However, in many cases, the same medicines we take only mask the pain instead of addressing the root causes, consequently end up actually making the sickness worse. When Yeshua and the apostles healed people, it was done by true faith. The faith had to be a two-way street, in which the person being healed and the healer had to have faith in the power of Yahweh through the Spirit of Yeshua, or else the healing would not take place.
And his disciples said unto him, You seest the multitude thronging you, and sayest you, Who touched me? And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, your faith hath made you whole. Go in peace, and be whole of your plague. Mark chapter 5, verses 31 through 34.
Although the woman was fearful, her strong faith in Yeshua overrode her fear, enabling her to believe that Yeshua would heal her. The fame of Yeshua's works and miracles helped lead to her eyes being opened up to belief.
The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and forsake not the law of your mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto your head, and chains about your neck. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 7 through 9.
Having faith and fear can determine what works you produce. However, fear, aimed in the wrong direction, can limit your faith and works. Just as a fruit-bearing tree must be planted, requiring works, we must utilize the right type of fear in us, that if we do not have faith in Yahweh, we shall have no wisdom, and we will not bear good fruit. A fruit-bearing tree that bears bad fruit or no fruits is unprofitable at the time of harvest.
Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now you are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abideth in the vine. No more can you, except you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. John chapter 15, verses 2 through 6.
By keeping Yahweh first, by doing our works and keeping his commandments, the fruit we bear will not be in vain. For this is the duty of those who serve Yah.
And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. Mark chapter 12, verse 30. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim, and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13.
As in the days of old, there are still many false prophets who have chosen to do Lucifer's evil works to gain the faith of the children of Israel for financial gain. Those modern-day magicians that claim to make the law and sin disappear can be known today as pastors, politicians, scientists, and priests. These three entities share one major thing in common, which is the act of promoting lies. Instead of using what is written in the Bible, they choose to use sorcery, misinterpretation of the truth in the Word, and made themselves gods in their own eyes. However, there will be consequences for their ways, for it is written in Deuteronomy,
There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yahweh. And because of these abominations, Yahweh your Elohim does drive them out from before you. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 through 12.
To better understand what our works are, we must understand the concept of glorifying Yahweh versus glorifying ourselves. we must always remember in doing our works, it is to praise Yahweh and not to praise man, whether that person be you, your family, your priest, or even Yahshua himself. For all praise belongs to the Father through the Son.
Sing unto Elohim, sing praises to his name. Extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name Yah, and rejoice before him. You shall say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you. Psalms chapter 68 verse 4 and Exodus chapter 3 verse 14.
While singing praises unto Yah and doing our works, we must also not forget that we are not to put all of our trust into any man. For having real faith is not as easy as looking to receive a quick blessing from man.
It is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in man. Thus saith Yahweh, Cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departed from Yahweh. For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, in a salt land, and not inhabited. Blessed is the man that trusteth in Yahweh, in whose hope Yahweh is. Psalms 118 verse 8 and Jeremiah chapter 17 verses 5 through 7.
Although we must not put our trust in man, we must learn to recognize the servants of Yah that are sent to us to help us learn and develop true faith and works. We must learn to exercise and develop a discerning spirit to recognize that which has come from Yah and that which comes from man, or we will be fooled by the false prophets.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. Yohanan chapter 14, verse 12.
For most, Yahshua is not going to speak to us directly. He is going to speak to us through other servants that speak the same word he spoke to his disciples, and those that also do Yah's works as Yahshua did himself. By matching the words and works of a person against the words and works of Yahshua, we can identify who has true faith.
Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Matthew chapter 7, verse 15.
Yahweh is a spirit, and we are flesh and spirit. Yahweh has placed his faith in elect men and women to spread his word and works to the lost sheep. It takes faith in the word of Yah to use it as a compass in guiding you on whom to listen to and whom to not. Our faith will be proven the day of the Messiah's return. For he may say unto us, as he did to his disciples, asking them, have faith, and to fully believe in him, in doing his Father's works.
Then said Yahshua unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24.
In today's society, we have pulled away from following our true Father, Yahweh the Elohim of Israel, and have relied more on following the doctrine of carnal man. Yahshua, whom also was made into a man, said himself that even he was not great. Yahshua's perfection and holiness comes from his Father's commandments and by doing his works.
And Yahshua said unto him, Why callest you me good? There is none good but one, that is Elohim. Mark chapter 10, verse 18.
Despite the Bible being one of the best-selling books in history, there are still so many teachings of other doctrines claiming that all you have to do is tithe, have faith in the Messiah, and pray for prosperity while disregarding the commandments. For many centuries, this practice was and still is one of Lucifer's greatest known deceptions. This approach is not of Yah and can only bring you financial prosperity, which does not always equate to spiritual prosperity.
So then, because you are lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth. Because you saith, I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that you are wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. Revelation chapter 3, verses 16 through 17.
The word prosperity, according to the Strong's Concordance, also means health, security, rest, and peace. in which money can't always guarantee. Focusing on Yah's works for spiritual gain instead of focusing on worldly works towards seeking financial gain is a true display of faith and works. Yahshua provided us prophetic warnings and instructions to do so.
So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust do corrupt, and where the thieves do not break through nor steal. Matthew chapter 20, verse 16, and Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 20.
As a stiff-necked people, lacking understanding, we often rather do what is easy unto us. When it comes to advice, we tend to seek those that make it easy for us to stay the same. When it comes to worship, we tend to look for churches that encourage us to only make sacrifices of financial tithes versus spiritual sacrifices of repentance. In this search of the come as you are and leave as you are worship houses, it often leads us into congregations ran by those who aren't even ordained by Yahweh to teach us how to attain unto salvation, which is the end goal of the true believer. The doctrine of gaining wealth and riches on earth through the willful disregard of the commandments and by offering no true works for Yah is not of the Messiah. So where did this prosperity doctrine originate from?
Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give you, if you will fall down and worship me. Then said Yahshua unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, You shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him only shall you serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 through 11.
Notice that the adversary said to fall down and worship him in return for earthly treasures. When we fall down intentionally or transgress the law intentionally, then we are now worshiping the adversary whether we know it or not. Yahweh has clearly identified how he commanded to be worshipped, and Satan has identified his commands on how he is to be worshipped. Worshiping the adversary has obtained many riches for the wicked, but as the proverb saith,
The wicked are overthrown and are not, but the house of the righteous shall stand. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 7.
Another test of faith through works for true believers is the resurrection of Yahshua. The 12 disciples were a group of ordinary men in which Yahshua placed his faith in to do the works necessary to propel the new church. He believed in them to do his Father's works by spreading the word and performing miracles. They in turn did the works and had faith in Yahshua that he was the Son of Yah and would be resurrected after 3 days. It was the works of Yahshua that increased their faith, and in turn the disciples increased their works, which increased the faith of others. A great example of this was Yohanan, a true believer having strong faith in Yahshua's works. Upon hearing of Yahshua's miracles of healing, he was motivated even more and could not be silenced in prison.
Now when Yohanan had heard in the prison the works of Yahshua, he sent 2 of his disciples, and said unto him, Are you he that should come, or do we look for another? Yahshua answered and said unto him, Go and show Yohanan again those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. Matthew chapter 11, verses 2 through 6.
Yohanan continued his faith and works in and out of captivity, but was still looked upon as one who had a devil. However, Yohanan, up to the day he died, knew that his works would not have been in vain, for he had faith that Yahshua would remember him.
For Yohanan came to you in the way of righteousness, and you believed him not. But the publicans and the harlots believed in him, and you, when you had seen it, repented not afterward, that you might believe him. Matthew chapter 21, verse 32.
Works in our time can be classified as any deeds or dealings that promote Yahweh's name through our physical doings, dealings, appearance, and even words towards each other. However, these works can be either good or bad works. Bad works done by the children of Israel blaspheme Yahweh's holy name.
For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. And Dawid said unto Nathan, I have sinned against Yahweh. And Nathan said unto Dawid, Yahweh also hath put away your sin. You shall not die. Howbeit, because by this deed you have given great occasion to the enemies of Yahweh to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto you shall surely die. Romans chapter 2, verse 24, and 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 13 through 14.
Not only our actions must we be mindful of, but we must also be cognizant of our words. We must be very careful to ensure that our works are acceptable unto Yah, especially those that directly involve verbal communication. Servants of Yah have been given an important warning concerning this in James chapter 3.
Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. James chapter 3, verses 5 through 8.
With the adversary having rule of this world for a time, when speaking against lies and spreading the truth, one will face persecution, as the Mashiach and his disciples did. We must continue keeping Yahweh's laws, speaking and spreading his commandments, always remembering to have faith when faced with the consequential persecution that follows coming from our friends, family, and peers. At the Last Supper with his disciples, which was the true Passover, Yahshua told them of the evil deeds that would be done against him, but encouraged them to still continue in works, no matter what, to continue to have faith, for he knew his own fate before it was revealed to all of them. As it came to pass of Yahshua's fate, Yahweh's works was fulfilled by the sacrifice of his only begotten Son.
But is now made manifest by the appearing of our Savior Yahshua the Mashiach, who hath abolished death, and have brought life and immortality to light through the gospel. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 10.
Even the angels had to exhibit their faith through works. Yahweh had angels whose jobs were to do his works in ensuring all of his prophecies are fulfilled.
And then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Mark chapter 13, verse 27.
The works you do or don't do determine the fruit you bear. This fruit identifies in whom your faith is in. Yah's works bear good fruit. Bad fruit bared identify a bad tree and shows a lack of true faith in Yah. Lucifer and his angels have placed their faith in themselves, and their works is to spread confusion, lies, and false prophecies, so that we as a people would not know who the true Elohim will be in his return. The adversary and his angels bear their fruit through their work, which was identified in the planting of the tares among the wheat. The wheat represents the children of Israel, and the tares represent the children of the adversary, in which were planted to try and destroy Israel, wage war against the saints, and convince the children of Israel to give up and lose our faith.
For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Matthew chapter 24, verse 24.
The adversary uses natural disturbances in life to cause confusion, taking your mind off of your works. When this happens, we begin to sink. This is the goal of the adversary, and he has perfected it over thousands of years. He tries to get the servants of Yah to quit doing their spiritual works by adding carnal interference in order to encourage them to turn to depending on themselves instead of the Spirit and faith. A good example of this precept can be found in Matthew 22.
And Cephas answered him and said, Adonai, if it be you, bid me come unto you on the water. And he said, Come. And when Cephas was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Yahshua. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Adonai, save me. And immediately Yahshua stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O you of little faith, wherefore didst you doubt? Matthew chapter 14, verses 25 through 31.
Peter moved towards Yeshua, which was his works, and had faith that he could walk on water. Full of faith and full of works, he began to walk on water. Then came a natural disturbance of turbulence, distracting him from his works, and began to lose faith. Thus he began to sink. Yahweh allows these carnal attacks from the adversary sometimes as faith exercises, teaching his children on how to trust in Yah and to remain faithful in times of turbulence. If we ground ourselves in works for Yah, moving us towards Yeshua, our faith will be increased, and where we fall short, the true believers will be covered under Yeshua's blood, which is the Spirit of Israel. Each of Yah's servants' works is to keep his laws, statutes, and judgments, which require faith and works. The men of Yah, their works is to work with their hands, and as fishermen, spreading the word of Yeshua's faith, and works to all with ears to hear and eyes to see, beginning with the children of Israel first. Husbands must do so by starting at home first, in order to provide a covering over their families through Yeshua. The daughters of Yah's works are to remain virtuous women, serving as an example of righteousness unto others. The wives and daughters serve as administrators of the home, caregivers, being good at sewing, cooking, and cleaning, as helpmeet unto their husbands and fathers. The virtuous woman of faith helps their covering to be the best servant of Yah they can be. Remaining full of faith by her works, she trusts that Yah will provide for her and her family through her covering, whether it be through her father, husband, or Yeshua.
Likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may be without the word be won by the conversation of the wives, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. Whose adorning, let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair, and of wearing of gold, or putting on of apparel. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 through 3.
When your faith remains primarily in the hands of a man, your glass could end up being half empty. Then after, you are inevitably let down by them. The only person remaining may be who you see in the mirror, in which you may have already lost faith in.
For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. James chapter 1, verses 23 through 24.
The man whose faith is in man looks at himself in the mirror, ignoring his infirmities, and has the wrong kind of faith. They believe that they are safe, living in whichever manner they are currently living, regardless of how it relates to how we are instructed in our Bibles to live. Our faith as true believers must be unwavering, so that no man can convince us that Yeshua's works for Israel were in vain. We must call our full attention to our faith and works. We must ensure we have enough works on our spiritual accounts so that we may be truly faithful at our time of judgment, that Yeshua will pick up the slack and speak up for us, showing us approved that we are truly servants of Yah. As followers of the Mashiach, we should be like unto his example when it comes to faith and works, to be considered true servants of Yah.
Remember his marvelous works that he had done, his wonders, and the judgments of his mouth. 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 12.
So again, we must call our full attention to our faith and works. For when it's all said and done, as Yahweh has commanded, we will all be judged based on our own level of faith, which will be proven by our works and how it relates to our instructions as servants of Yahweh according to the covenant of Yahweh.
Yeshua said unto them, Come you after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men. Mark chapter 1, verse 17.